Good morning, everyone. Who is up with you? Yes, it's early. Happy Sunday. Um, I am appreciating the sun and the birds chirping. I did not make it to Sunday morning worship today, simply because I got a lot going on today. Got a lot on my schedule, and I had a pretty full week um, and a pretty full Saturday on yesterday. So Uh, today, I just want to get through a lot of things on my checklist. So, before I get started with that, I was feeling that I wanted to pop on and just go over a practice question with you guys to get you started off for the week. Um, there are so many new people joining our group every single day. We have over 9,000 members and many of them have already passed their exam and moved on, and some pretty much just stay around and stick around just to continue to provide support to the newcomers as well as just kind of hang around to continue to strengthen their skills and learn as well. For those of you who are popping in, if you can hear me, it always helps if you let me know you can hear me by just typing yes in the comment section. That way I know I'm on point. You guys are able to hear me and we are not having any technical difficulties. I have on earplugs, so um, I'm not 100% sure of how much you can hear or what you can hear. And sometimes you might hear a little chiming coming through, and that's just messages, either text messages or email or whatever. People are always trying to get in touch with me. So if you are able to hear me, please type in the comment section, yes, I can hear you. Um, and then that way I could get ready to move forward. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bridget Montgomery. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am a full-time psychotherapist, and I have a full-time group psychotherapy practice. Outside of providing psychotherapy, I also do supervision for master's level social workers, and I tutor for master's level social workers that are attempting their LMSW exam as well as their LCSW exam. So there's a lot of different things that I do under that umbrella. I am a social worker. I love being a social worker, and I identify as a social worker. The practice question that I will be reviewing this morning, I actually adapted from the social work exam, and there's a link here on this front page. I will also put it on my YouTube page for those of you who are catching the replay, or for those of you who want the link and be able to use the link so you can go and check out other questions later on in your own private study. But I am using this question. This is not my question. I did adapt the question. Um, and I just enjoy, being able to take a question and just kind of going over the questions and just breaking them down, as best as I can in this forum, without the one-to-one contact that I have generally with my students. So for those of you who are popping on, again, good morning. And let's go ahead and get started, because I actually forgot my cup of coffee and I don't have it, and my boy cannot make me a cup of coffee. So the sooner I get through this, the quicker I can get to my coffee and get started with my day. So um, I'm hoping that we'll have beautiful weather today because I got a lot going on. So let's go ahead and take a look at this question. All right. So I always say it's very important in how you read the question. A lot of times what we do, we just we see the practice questions pop up, or we turn to a page and there's a practice question. And what we tend to do is we just dive right in there. We're so anxious about reading it and trying to get it correct that we really don't take our time to try to focus on and understand exactly what we are reading. Now, if you take away nothing else from today, I want to give you this and I want you to take this away. This is a reading exam. So what exactly does that mean? You are being assessed on your ability to be able to read, understand and interpret what's going on in the vignettes. Now, for sake of time, I don't have time to go into great detail about that. But when you are reading any piece of material, you always want to read for the purpose of understanding. And we don't want to just read to get the gist. Now, we've done that for 2.5, 3 years, going through our master's program. We were given tons of information, tons of material to read. And we learned how to quick read or skim read and pull out just the basic information. Well, for the purpose of this exam, for passing this licensing exam, we cannot read for the gist. We must read every single word specifically, slowly, and carefully. And the reason why we need to read every single word specifically, slowly, and carefully, because every word counts. Every word is given a clue to or toward the problem that we need to identify in this situation. And it leads us closer to identifying the correct response or the best response. Let me erase that word correct. That's another thing that I want to give to you. We are not looking for a correct answer because there are a variety of answers that we could always implement or institute to respond to these questions. What we are looking for is the best answer of the four choices given, the best answer of the four choices given that's relative to the vignette. Now, that's my disclaimer, that's my discussion. And I'm quite sure most of you probably already read the question and the four answer choices and pretty much didn't hear anything that I said. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the question. Well, not necessarily go back. I am going to begin to read the question, and you all can read with me. Don't work ahead of me, work with me. If you work with me, chances of you being able to digest and understand what we're doing here will, increase the likelihood of you being able to see why the choice is what it is as opposed to the other. So let's go. Let's read this together. An 11-year-old boy is involved with juvenile court due to chronic curfew violations. His 16-year-old brother takes care of him by making sure that he completes his homework assignments, eats his meals daily, and gets to where he needs to be on time. They have an older brother who is incarcerated on drug charges. Their parents are going through a bitter divorce. They tend to blame one another for their children's problems and the family's financial issues. The juvenile court referred the family to see a social worker for therapy services. What is the first approach the social worker should take in helping the family? Now, that was a mouthful. As I read, all I heard was a lot of different things going on. And so, if I may, what I want to do, because I want to engage you guys for a little bit. So I kind of want to get rid of the answer choices. And I just want to kind of focus on the vignette all by itself. Now, some of us probably already read the four choices, and that's okay. But let's go back, all right? So we have an 11-year-old boy who is involved with juvenile court, right? So that we know. He's 11 years old. He's involved with juvenile court because he has chronic issues with getting in on time, right? He's constantly violating his curfew. That right there is a little bit concerning to me. He's 11 years old and constantly violating curfew. That's an issue. His 16-year-old brother takes care of him. Okay. And how does he take care of him? He makes sure that he completes his homework, eats his meals daily, and get to where he needs to be on time, right? And that's a lot for a 16-year-old, to have to be a caretaker and doing those kinds of things for a sibling. But it's not uncommon. We see these kinds of things happening all the time. Now, What tends to happen sometimes is when we're trying to figure out what is going on or what the problem is in the vignette, a lot of folks tend to point to what they read first and generally kind of identify the situation of this kid being on probation for violating curfew and his brother, taking care of him and making sure that he has to, get his meals and getting in on time and making sure that he's not violating his curfew, right? And so we forget to kind of read a little bit further. So they also have a brother who's incarcerated and on drugs. The parents are going through a bitter divorce, right? That's a descriptor. They're going through a bitter divorce. They blame one another for their children's problems and for the financial issues that, they're going through. This is a lot going on. So the juvenile court referred the family to see a social worker for therapy services. All right. So they've been referred to you for therapeutic services. Now, what is the first approach that you should take when it comes to helping this family? What will you do? But before we can identify what we'll do, we have to first think through this. What's going on here? What's the problem? And so before I go to talk about that, I want you guys to engage me a little bit. After reading all of that, what do we identify in this vignette as being the problem? I'm going to give you about a minute to go ahead and type that in the comment section. Don't be afraid. This is how we learn. We learn together. We're not always going to get everything right. Sometimes we might make a little error, and that's okay. But if you can, write in the comment section, what do you see as the problem in this vignette? What is it that we need to be addressing? Now, notice, I know some of the practice prep programs probably told us that, in order to identify the problem will most likely be the sentence before the last. And so you want to go there to identify the problem. Now, all that could be fine and well and dandy. And sometimes it is situated like that. But one of the reasons why I don't like to give a specific technique or strategy or a skill for trying to identify a situation is that it doesn't apply for every vignette, for every question. And so when we're trying to use these strategies and we're and our mind is stuck on, using the same strategy to answer questions, we tend to find ourselves in situations where we get really frustrated when we can't see where it's working. Now, when you look at this, I see compounded issues. And what I mean by that, there's a multitude of problems going on here, right? And it's not just one. And so when you have a situation like this where there's more than one issue that needs to be addressed, what is it that you should do and how is it that you should respond? And that's what we're looking at here. What should we do first or what's our first approach? Before we can really clearly think through that. I'm trying to see what you guys are writing in the comment section. Before we can really clearly think through that, we got to see what's going on here. And I have an 11-year-old who's on curfew for who's on probation for violating curfew. I have a 16-year-old brother who has to take care of him and, pretty much be really responsible. I have parents who's going through a divorce and they can't seem to get on the same page and they're blaming each other for the situations that's happening in their family. And then I have another brother who's not even a part of the picture at this particular time because he's incarcerated because he was caught selling drugs. So that's about 5 different issues that, I've pretty much identified that's going on here. And so when we have something like that, we have a family, that's in crisis, right? We have a family that's going through stuff, right? That's probably in crisis, right? We can infer that, not assume. We can infer that as a family that they're really struggling and not able to go through, not able to handle these situations the way that they need to handle. Hold on 1 second. Get up here. We can infer that they're struggling right now as a family and not able to handle situations based on some of the information that they're saying, okay, in the vignette. All right. We see here that the juvenile court had to refer the family because of all of these issues. Now, when we have the juvenile court referring them for family therapy, then we can safely say or infer that this family needs some support. If they don't get some support, then what's going to happen here? We're going to have another child that quite possibly might end up in some kind of juvenile delinquency center. We might have a brother that might be going through stuff, right? And so we don't want to go too far out there and start thinking about all that stuff, but we want to stay specifically on what was given to us. And what was given to us is we have a 11-year-old that's having issues. We have a 16-year-old that's being parentified. We have another brother that's incarcerated. We have parents that are not able to get along and they're going through a divorce. So what do? This family has been referred to you. We have compounded issues. And so whose issue takes precedent? Whose issue is more important? And when we have a situation like this, are we taking one situation over the next? Or is it something that we need to do when we bring the family in because we're working with the family as a whole? Then there's a way that we address this situation with the entire family. So how will we address this situation? What's the best first approach to take with this family who have compounded issues so that we can adequately address the need of the family? All right. So the goal here is to adequately address the need of the family, right? Go ahead and write what you think without even seeing the questions, without even seeing the answer responses. What it is that you would do. How would you address this family? How would you approach this family first? What is the first thing that you think would be appropriate to kind of help with the family? And it's not necessarily about what are the four choices that was given to us, but what I'm looking for how you guys think. Because what I want you all to recognize and realize and understand is that you do know these answers. You know your approach. You know what it is that you would do. And that's okay. And that's great, right? So given what you would do, right, and how you would handle it, and then when you see the four answer choices, does it relate? Is it similar? Is it close to? Can you apply the same principles? And maybe if it's not the first approach that you would take, but then you see the options that they give you, and out of those options that they give you, which one makes the best sense? But I'm just curious, how would you approach this family, given technique, given skill, and knowing which technique and what skill need to be applied here? What would you do? So we got to hear some people saying the parents are the problem, neglect from the parents, and see it's situations like that. Neglect from the parents, the 16-year-old, the 16-year-old as a caretaker, curfew and parents lack involvement, so neglect. So right now we're pulling in a lot of different things in terms of pointing the finger at the parents and saying that they're neglectful. And so if our mind is thinking like that, then our approach is going to be that. So we're identifying the parent as the problem. Okay. And so, with that being said, what I need y'all to see, why I pointed this out, is that the family was referred for services. So keep in mind, the family was referred, right? So if the family is being referred, then this is a family system type issue. And when we're dealing with the family, there is no identified well, there is no one person that we should be focusing on. So the content area that's being assessed here is our understanding of family therapy, right? What technique, skill, what technique or skill should be used or applied in a first situation, or a first encounter when dealing with the family system. So I hope I said that correctly. All right. So what we got going on here, we don't have an individual person that we're dealing with. We have a family that we're treating. And so we have to look at the family as a whole. And looking at the family as a whole, what's our first approach with this family? How do we reel them in and bring them in together? And this is understanding family systems, right? Family theory or structural, which theory would apply here, which would be the best practice, or which would be the best approach, and which theory or which family theory would best apply to this situation. I'm sorry, I was tripping over my words, because my son is in here acting all silly and I'm trying not to focus on him. Okay, so we got the parents, we got the adults involved, need to be more involved. Figure out what the family wants first. Okay. Christina Maria, I think we're on to something very good. I like that. I like that response. Figure out what the family wants first. Latrice, parents, 16 and 11-year-old issues, process feelings about the brother being in jail. I'm curious, why did we just go there? Why are we processing um, how the 16 and the 11-year-old feel about, that's not a bad response or a wrong answer, but is that a first approach when this family is first coming to you? This, again, guys, is where the helping process is so relevant. And what I mean by that, when you understand the helping process and phase of treatment, then you have a better understanding of what technique and skills, right? What technique and skills, let me pull that up, should be applied in, as it relates to the phase of treatment that you're in. Okay, so if this is a new client, if this is not an established client, this is a client or a family system that was referred to you by the juvenile court. You're just, getting to know this family. And so in the first session, do we really want to jump right in and start processing how you feel about a brother being incarcerated, right? Not really, not in the first session, okay? So there's some different things that we want to do, as a first response, right? In our initial phase of treatment. I would say maybe that comes, the second or third session, where we want to start getting to know, about the children, and how they feel about, a sibling or their sibling being incarcerated. Okay, so let me look at some more responses before I go ahead and look at the 4 choices they gave us. Melanie, each member needs support. Parents seems to lack the ability themselves. Melanie, I like where you're going with that. Very good. Um, Ask them what they need help with. Excellent. I am in no means. I can't say your. I can't read your name. I'm sorry. But that's an excellent response. Latrice, since they were referred by juvenile court, address that issue first. Okay, we're on to something there. Steffi, ask them to discuss how these issues are affecting the family, provide empathy and validate concerns, see from the perspective of what's going on. Very good, Steffi. That's a lot going on there, but excellent. I see what you're saying. So, ask them. I like the word them. Them suggests the family system to discuss how these issues are affecting the family and provide some empathy. We always want to acknowledge feelings and, validate what's going on, but we want to check in with each individual. Assess the family needs and safety. Okay, good. Assist the parents in their family approach to addressing the issue at hand. So when we assist the family, then when we assist the parents, then we're forgetting about the children as well. We're making the issue about the parents only. And Steffi says family system. So very good. There was a lot of good responses in there, guys. And I'm really proud of what you guys put up there. So let me go ahead and erase this out the way. I know you guys are really anxious with seeing what our answer choices are. So let's see what we got going on here. All right. So let's just go back and read the vignette again so it could all make sense and be a nice flow. So we have an 11-year-old boy who is involved with juvenile court due to chronic curfew. His 16-year-old brother takes care of him by making sure that he completes his homework assignments, eat his meals daily, and get to where he needs to be on time. They have an older brother who is incarcerated and on drug charges. Their parents are going through a bitter divorce. They tend to blame one another for their children's problems and the family's financial issues. The juvenile court referred the family to see a social worker for therapy. What is the first approach the social worker should take in helping this family? Now, here are the 4 choices that they gave us. A, educate the parents on the needs for parental structure and balance in the home. B, acknowledge each member and ask what each desires to gain from services. C, work with the parents on re-engaging in their appropriate roles. And D, work with the youngest 2 as a dyad, empowering and supporting the 16-year-old and his roles. Now, we discussed a lot before I showed you these 4 choices. What I need you to do real quick is, out of the 4 choices, which one is the best answer choice given all the information that we've already discussed? Keep it in mind, there are compounded issues. Keep it in mind, the family was referred to therapy. Keep it in mind that we need to address the system, the family system, and what would be our approach for addressing the family system. Understanding that this is a family therapy context, and that we do not have an individual person that, is being identified as the problem or the person that we should be addressing or the individual that we should be addressing. How do we address this on a family systems perspective? A, B, C, or D? All right, looking good, y'all. Looking real good. Okay, so we got B, 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 B. All right, any other responses out there? See, we got a few people that are logging on, so don't be afraid. Just come on and join in. You guys help me with being able to, dialogue back when you're commenting and when you're talking back to me in the comments. It helps a lot. All right. All right. We still got some answers pulling in. D. Very good. Okay. And we learn by trying. Never be afraid. The thing is, there's no failing in trying. Sometimes I'm sitting back and I'm watching a lot of people in the groups, and I see we got a lot of silent followers. We got people that won't, share information or dialogue about different things, and they kind of just wait and watch and see what other people are going to share and say, and just kind of go off of that. But your best learning comes through social learning, interacting, engaging, dialoguing, talking things through. And even if you make an error, that's okay because we can learn from those mistakes and learn from those errors. So don't be afraid to participate. Don't be afraid to engage and interact. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to put your response and why you thought it was. So if you're sharing your response and why you thought it was, then when you get a clear rationale for what the actual answer was, and you have a better understanding, and that way you can see where you went wrong or what you could do differently to kind of revise and revamp your responses. I always encourage people to make sure that when they're given their answers, that we're not just selecting the answer. You always want to be able to defend your answer and support your answer through a rationale. And that's A, B, C, and D. If you're choosing B, you want to choose B and state why you're choosing B. What's the rationale behind that? If you're not choosing A, you want to select A and say why A is not the best choice for this particular situation. Okay? And so let's look through this. A, all right, educate the parents on the need for parental structure and balance in the home. Well, again, we started off by saying this is a family issue, and the family was referred. And so we don't want to just focus on the parents only, but we want to understand where everyone is and how everyone is being impacted by the situations going on in the family unit. Okay. And so that's why I would say no to A. All right. D, acknowledge each member and ask what each desires to gain from service. So thinking in terms of this is a new family, they're just coming in to see you. You don't know anything about them, only the concerns that have been addressed, only the presenting information. I would say yes, this is a good choice because first, I want to acknowledge what everyone is going through and allow them to own their feelings. And then I would want to know what would they like get out of this process, you know, gain an understanding of where they are and where they would like to be. So yes, B is a likely answer and B is a good answer or a good selection. Let's look at D. I mean C, sorry. Work with the parents on re-engaging in their appropriate roles. Well, I would say no because clearly the vignette indicates that they are in a divorce process and that they've already made that decision to move on with um, with their lives. Um, However, focusing on their roles as the parent is necessary, but we don't only want to make it about them. So even though it's important for us to re-engage them and help them understand what their roles are as parents and their job as parents, yes, I think that's important, but that's not something that we're going to do first. That would be something that we would do a little bit down the line after we get an idea where everybody else is and what their thinking is in terms of the family system and what's going on with the family overall and what kind of things they would like to work on and get out of this process. And then D, work with the youngest two as a dyad, empowering and supporting the 16-year-old in his role. Well, I would say again, no, not as a first response. I think again, it's something something that could be examined upon establishing goals and a working relationship. But when it comes to, you know, kind of like co-signing um, the 16-year-old role, I think I would look more at how does he feel about being put in such a responsible role. So I don't think I would co-sign it, but I would kind of gauge him and get an idea how he feels about that. But again, that's something that will come later on down the line and not as a first approach. And we got to remember, this said what's the first approach. So again, key words are, we have to take into consideration and kind of think about. I don't think any of the answer choices per se were bad answer choices altogether. However, I do think in a bigger scheme of things, when we're trying to understand what it is that we're doing, we don't have an individual person that we need to be addressing. We're addressing a family system. And so when we're addressing the family system, we need to look at the family as a whole. And looking at the family as a whole, we need to start where they are. And starting where they are is getting the idea of what it is that they feel as though they need and they want, and they will hope to get out the process. So with all that being said, I'm moving up here, and I hope you guys can see that the correct answer, as many of you have already chosen, is B. B is acknowledging each member and ask what each desires to gain from the service. It's best practice to acknowledge each member and assess where each one is mentally and emotionally and where each one desires to be. It's important to meet each client where they are and help each one become proactive and look toward the future instead of blaming or scapegoating one person as the cause of the chaos in the family. There is a lot going on, but if we bring them all to the same platform, we get them all on the same program, we restore homeostasis within the family. We understand that, if one part in the system is broken, it can impact and affect everybody else, and it shifts everybody else in terms of how they respond, how they interact, how they think. And this is family systems theory. This is what family systems theory teaches, that, everybody have their own position, everybody have their own role. However, but everybody working together is what makes the family system work, is what makes the family unit run and function properly. And so taking a family systems perspective, we need to kind of meet each individual where they are, identify what it is that they would want or hope to get out of this process, assess what their needs are, and then take it from that approach and move on to create and develop our treatment plan and goal. But we can't do that if we don't know where they are and have an understanding of where they are. All right. That was a mouthful. That was a whole lot. I hope you guys got something out of this. For those of you who are popping in later and kind of missed the beginning, you can catch the replay in the group, or you can go to my YouTube page. I will upload it there along with all of these links. I have attached a couple of links here in the group on this here page, because I think it's really important. It's one thing to read questions and answer questions, but it's another thing to have a full, healthy understanding of what you're doing. And so I always like to provide extra resources for reading and studying purposes. So I will also place these links in the YouTube. You would need to go to YouTube to actually get these links, and I'll have it in in the descriptor section. That way you can kind of hit the links and go ahead and go to those pages. Also note that you can get questions and more questions like these from Social Work Exam Prep. That's one place where I do get some of my questions, and I also write for them. I write practice questions myself, and add to their resource of knowledge that they have there. For those of you who don't know, I do provide one-to-one tutoring, and you can always access that from my personal webpage, which is BridgetMontgomeryLLC.com. Again, that's BridgetMontgomeryLLC.com. You can always go to my YouTube page and check out more videos like this. And that's Bridget Montgomery LCSW And so you can catch those videos for free as well. Okay. Any questions, you can pop them in the comment section. I will do my best with trying to respond to any. Please, if you are interested in the one-to-one tutoring, please just go to my webpage and fill out the information there. All the information you need is on that webpage. It helps me with staying organized and focused and being able to respond to everybody individually. Don't please don't send any messages in my instant message web on my instant messenger and Facebook, because that get lost and it gets to be overwhelming after a while. But thank you guys for all of your support. Have a great Sunday. So enjoy the weather for those of you who got some sunny weather out there. I am going to sign off and go get my coffee and deal with my son. I think he was a little bit jealous that I carved out this time and jumped on, because he just would not let me focus. But we got through it. So again, thank you guys for your support and thank you for your participation. And I will see you next time. Have a great day.